All right. Let's welcome in Coach Guglielmo. Did I say that right? Did I get it
Yeah.
right again? Sort
Yeah.
of. He's the head football coach at Caruthersville. I said that wrong. I know that. High school in Missouri. Coach, welcome back. We just talked for a couple minutes. Good to catch back up. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Been a lot of changes since the last time we spoke.
There's only some pictures. That's the only thing that's changed. Still the same wall. Still the same wall as before. Just new computer, new pictures. That's about it.
Yeah.
Well, I actually have an actual microphone and sound pad too. If I have to tell you that, I have it all right here.
Yeah, like I said, when we first spoke, you were right into the podcast business, and now you got decorations and
The Pat McAfee paychecks aren't coming in yet, but we got to get to that point.
shoot. You get him on.
Oh my gosh, you know what? I'm not big time. I'm not big time yet. Nobody, I don't know. You guys are all big time, so anybody that comes on bigger time than I am. But you made a couple of changes. Last time I talked to you, you were coaching Division III football. Now you moved on back or to the high school level. Moved on.
Yeah, I did, and it's funny you say that. So I got to the point where college football, as much as I loved it, and I still love the college football, and I think it was time at that point in my career. COVID kind of opened my eyes to a couple of things, and not at Keystone, just in career in general. And it's like, shoot, let's give it a shot. And I moved, or that 2021 spring, we wrapped up spring ball, or just about to wrap up spring ball, and I got a job at Yuma Catholic High School in Arizona. So I didn't have a teaching certificate or anything. So I was the assistant AD there, and I was the offensive line coach, and I loved coaching high school football. Like, I got that. I mean, there's something different about coaching high school football than coaching college football, and it's not necessarily a different game, but it's a different vehicle that you're taking to get from place to place. And then that was season ended. We played in the state final game, and this job popped open, and I shot my shot. I was like, and I lived in Paducah, Kentucky, which is a couple hours up the road from here. And so I knew about Caruthersville. My dad knew about the Caruthersville football, and he's like, oh, that's a big job there, and they've had a history of a lot of success, da, 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 da. So I shot my shot, and boom, flew out for an interview. Loved the town, loved the administration, and got offered the job. So I packed my stuff up and moved out to Missouri, and it's been probably the best move I could have made. I love it here.
You're just traveling the country, just going from spot to spot.
Yeah, I'm done traveling for a long while.
You're not the only one there. I've known a couple guys, especially Division III, that went back to high school. And it started a few years ago when I was coach at Charleston High School. He was the head coach at Millikan University.
Yep.
And he's like, you know what? I'm going to go back to high school. The high school right down the road needed a science teacher and a head football coach. He took it. And he goes, that was the best thing I could have done, because he was also coaching golf. They made him do that Division III, like, you're going to coach another sport. So he was the head football coach there and coaching golf at the same time. And then, so you're not the only one. A lot of people are doing that.
There's a lot of coaches that are transitioning high school football. I think a big part of it is, as much as I loved recruiting and I was a recruiting coordinator, I think a lot of it's the recruiting aspect. I mean, that is a lot for college coaches. I mean, I always hate when I see these high school coaches on Twitter calling out your DM. I sent you a DM and you didn't respond. You know how many DMs these guys get? It's like continuous,
right?
And you're going to sit there and call them out. I'm like, recruiting's a bear.
Mm-hmm.
bear and you're on the road and you're in-house and you're doing recruiting visits and you're doing all this stuff, and it's a lot and it's fun, but it's a lot. And that, I think, is a lot what steers guys. I mean, it was a small part of the factor, other than I knew that I would really enjoy coaching high school football and I wanted to be a head coach.
Mhm.
And head coach has been my goal since I was an intern at the college level and a GA at the college level. And my mentors went from D3 to being a high school head coach, and he loves it. And we talk about all the time about how much he loves being a high school head coach. And I love being a high school head coach and high school coaches in general. But there's a lot of factors that make college football very difficult. And what I'll give is any guy, no matter if they're at Alabama or Mount Union or bottom of the record chart schools, it's a hard job. It's a lot of hours, and coaching high school football is a lot of hours too. So don't get me wrong, but those guys, they put in work that nobody else sees,
Mhm.
and that's any coach. But like I said, I always hate when these people call these college coaches out for not checking their DMs. Like, you have no idea. The last thing on that guy's priority list is checking his DM.
Right. They're not going to check my DMs, ask them to come on the podcast. They see that and they go, I got other things to do. So
Yeah,
I'm not
I've got
one.
100 kids this week and have fill a recruiting visit day and watch all this film and check the academics of our kids and send out the next phase of the weight program and check the weights of the weight program and having their youth camp and traveling to camp to camp to camp to camp to camp to recruit kids. It's like, it's busy. These guys are busy constantly. Give them a break, damn. And
Yeah.
sometimes, like, you might think you have a diamond, but you don't.
Right.
Like, what you think is really good is not a fit for every school. So it's just life. Those guys, and I never coached high school football before last year, so I didn't know what high school football coaches went through. I quickly figured out what high school football coaches go through. So I think there's a big disconnect from the high school level to the college level on what actually goes into doing their job.
Yeah. I had, it's no secret. I had Coach Tony Franklin on here about 2 weeks ago, and he actually said that on there. He goes, I don't know why. He was talking about Division 1. He goes, I don't know why Division 1 guys complain. He goes, you get a car to go recruit, you get this, you get this. He goes, high school coaches, they've got to wash jerseys, they've got to set up practice field, they've got to, if you don't have a turf field, you're lining that field up. You know, you're doing this, you're doing this. So you're right. There is a little bit. Some that move on from high school to college a little bit. There's not, because they understand it. The ones that immediately go into it and they stay there and they get to elite level, sometimes there is. Sometimes there is, like, they don't understand. Like, I've had it pretty easy. Like, we have 2 turf fields, so I can't complain too much. But like,
Yeah.
but I came from a small town where in high school, as a player, we lined the field. I aerated the field. I got on a 4-wheeler because we got a new crown, and we had to plant the grass ourselves. We had to do this and that. And then as a coach, you're setting up the sled, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing whatever for the kids, because the kids shouldn't do it. No, I mean, they get the equipment out, but you set it up. And yeah, you're right. I never thought of that. There is a huge disconnect sometimes with college coaches.
There is, and there's issues that we have to deal with at the high school level that I didn't have to deal with at the college level, and vice versa. And yeah, you know what? They get a recruiting car and they get all the Nike stuff and stuff like that. But a lot of those guys, most high school coaches get to go home and see their family every night.
Mm-hmm.
I eat dinner at my dining room table every night. Those guys,
No.
so yeah, I mean, and there's, again, it's just too complete. The X's and O's are very similar. Naturally, football's football, but there's the responsibility list of the high school football coach and the college football coach, and there's some overlap in the middle, but there's just things on both sides that both sides the coaches don't understand. And I think that's a barrier that I wish somebody would try to break down, of where people could actually understand what a college coach goes through, and on the flip side, a high school coach goes through.
Yeah.
But that's not going to be me, so you can take that. You can take that thing over.
Well, I do it with the podcast. I talk to people and I hear what they go through, and then I say what we all go through, and kind of goes back and forth. So I do what I can, do the best I can do.
Yeah, and I mean, there's always going to be disconnects. It's like teachers are like, oh, those administrators, and
Mm-hmm.
we don't know what they go. Well, I want to know their job. Whew.
Yeah, don't get me started on administration and staff because there's a disconnect.
Everywhere, and we're very fortunate here. We have a really good administration. I like our administrators, and they understand. A lot of them were teachers in the district anyway.
Mhm.
But it's the same thing. It's no matter where you are. I mean, the guy that's working on the floor of Ford plant and the supervisor is going to be a disconnect. So no matter what phase of life you're in, there's a disconnect where it's like, oh, he does this and he doesn't have to do this and I have to do this. So I don't know. It's almost human nature. But in coaching, we all kind of got to stick together. And I'm glad like you and Nick and all those guys are doing these podcasts to kind of break down that barrier of what are these on both sides of the coin. And like JUCO guys,
Mm-hmm.
those guys, dang,
Yes.
they were twice. They were with their tails off.
Yes. That.
But we've all got our own challenges.
Yeah, because at least in high school and college, you might have them for 3 years, 4 years. JUCO, it's like you recruit that class, well, they're going to be gone next year. So I got to get it again. Good
And then you got to find a place to go.
Yes.
So, and then I don't know. So, like I said, every level of football's got their goods and their bads, but I think we got to do a better job as coaches on all the levels of understanding where the other coach is coming from and not just seeing the allure of, oh, well, they get this, and high school coaches don't have to do this, and college coaches have to do this. And look, we're all in one big machine, which is the football world.
Yeah, but I think a big is sometimes there's teachers that don't coach that have that disconnect with coaches as well. So that's a frustrating part of a high school coach dealing with that as well, because I'm not saying where I'm at, but I have seen where teachers don't like coaches because they think, oh, they're football coaches, they're basketball coaches, they get what they want. But you're not seeing that when you leave at 3:00, we're here till 7 or 8 and working. And, it's just, instead of hating each other, why don't we just be nice to each other?
We started a program where we have a faculty coach of the week. So Tammy Sullivan was ours for the June camp. And we invited our principal out and all this kind of stuff so they can come out and see what coaches go through and what kids go through. And it's perfect because it's hot out. So then they get to see football in the heat. But I mean, even those barriers within the building, we have the power as as high school coaches to break them down. Now, if you invite a teacher and they don't come, and they're still going to be like, oh, Coach G, like he's spoiled. He gets a Caruthersville football pullover and whatever, blah, 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 blah. Those football guys do this, and this. I mean, sometimes you can't get to everybody. But with that program, I mean, we're going to be able to cycle in quite a few teachers and they're going to be able to come to coaches meetings and lifts and practices. And if we're away, ride the bus with the kids, which I don't know why you would want to do that, but the option's there. And, because we're all gonna be sweating on the bus together because I ride the bus too. And like that kind of stuff. And that hopefully, and Miss Sullivan has made a comment, she never really understood what the coaches and players go through on a practice. And she came to the pre-practice meeting, lift, practice, post-practice meeting, and she was like, that was a lot more involved than I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as easy as that program is to run, it's something I think we need to be, or coaches should, because then we don't have that issue that you were talking about, because there might still be some animosity because, football is football, like everything loves football kind of a thing, but it'll break down that wall of, well, they just go out there and have fun and play catch, and it's just not true.
Right. That's a good idea to do that. That's actually a really good idea, to bring that connection back. So what was it like being an assistant athletic director right out of trying to go back into trying to coach high school football? Because athletic director, that's not a fun job either, especially after COVID.
thankfully, my athletic director did the brunt of all the athletic directing type stuff. It was a lot of game management, making sure the physicals are done, making sure the paperwork's done. It was kind of like the administrative aspect of it. I didn't really have to do scheduling or anything like that, but it was an interesting job, and I give those athletic directors a ton of credit because, like for instance, he's making sure the home football games are running smooth, and he was also the head wrestling coach, so we got a bunch of things. And I was an assistant football coach, so during the fall, I was pretty tied up with football, so he was picking up the slack and da 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 da. And there was always paperwork to do, and there was always moms calling about this and whatever and all that kind of stuff. And it was an interesting job.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it, but I like being in. I'm a PE teacher, so I use the word classroom lightly because we're in the gym. But I really prefer what I'm doing now over it because TGP is a blast.
Yep.
It's so fun every day. And I'd much rather be a classroom teacher.
That's another thing. That's another thing. People don't want to go to administrative stuff anymore. They're like, the stuff they're putting up with right now, I'd rather be right here and not deal with that.
At my current age and situation, I am perfectly happy with where I'm at teaching and coaching football and doing the weight room stuff and all that. There may be one day down the road, but you see a glimpse of what those guys go through on a daily basis just to keep the school moving forward. And I like being a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
One day I'm not saying I never want to be an administrator by any means, but I like my role right now.
Yeah, do it till it's not fun anymore. Then you got to find something else. And I don't see football not being fun for a long time, regardless of football.
It's the greatest thing in the world. It's the greatest sport ever.
It is, and I coach the other two, and I'm like, I still pick football. I love basketball. Don't get me wrong, that's my second. Love it because you're constantly coaching, like especially on the side, constantly. But the strategicness of football, the team aspect of it, because the whole team has to work together. Basketball, if you have one good player, he can go one-on-one and do whatever. Mm-hmm. And I really don't have to call a play. And football, as you know, like O-line's got to be together. Like everybody has to do their job. One or two doesn't do their job, it all breaks down. Like it's not going to work. So that's why it's my favorite. And that's why I love high school football, because it means so much to them how hard they work. But it can also be frustrating because if you get kids that never put on a helmet before, then you got to really have patience on that. You got
to coach them.
You got to coach them. Like literally they could walk in and all right, get a 3-point stance. And they don't know what the word stance means. They don't know what you're talking about. Well, you played football before? Nope.
We had teach kids how to put on shoulder pads and helmets and it's life. And that's the fun part. You see, even the kid's not very good, and he's like, and you're like, oh, well, you finally got it.
Yeah.
And his eyes light up, huge smile. It's like, oh my gosh, I just got a compliment. Like that stuff. That's the best part of the job. I mean, everybody loves to win. Now, let's be real. But I don't know, watching the kids that come in and they're like, because we came in with a whole new regime, like a whole new weight room stuff and all that. So it was a big learning curve for the guys when we first got here, and to see them finally starting to click is awesome.
Yeah, because we were, talking the other day, and I'll get to that. But for us, numbers issue, that's better. But my lineman issue is still a problem of getting linemen out. But we had a couple, and I just went through it. I've only coached varsity football and JV football. I've never coached freshman football. I've coached freshman basketball, but never freshman football. So I've only dealt with a handful of you've never put on cleats before or a helmet before. But sometimes the assistant coach takes that, I don't deal with it. Well, this year I have to come in and not have a heart attack this year because last year after COVID and dealing with all that, I'm like, I'm not going to be yelling and hooping and hollering. I'm not going to have a heart attack this year. So coming in, you see a kid come up who's a sophomore or junior, struggling upon his chin strap. Oh, come here, let me show you. And they have the old school one, not the new one, but the old snap on, oh, I'll help you out. I know this one perfectly. And like you said, once they get it, they're like, all right. And they're ready to go. Or hey, you don't got cleats? Well, let's go in the closet. I'll get you some cleats and we'll show you what this is like. Oh, you haven't got a 3-point stance? Let me show you what my fat ass can do. Hold on, I'll show you. Like if I can do it, you can do it. So, and
Mhm.
and like you say, when you give them compliments, and I this year I'm like, hey, that's 5 compliments I've given you. It must be a good day. And they're like, Coach Steve's giving compliments. This is a good day. But you're right, that's a big thing for kids. College is just like you got to do it. You should be able to do it. High
You should
school,
already know.
you should already know. High school, it's like you got to start from the ground up. And that's why sometimes people don't like going back to high school. They're like, oh, I don't want to do this. I'd rather do it where they already know. But there is pride in like, I taught that kid how to do a stance, and he can do it and move on. Like he played varsity football and he got to build this. And that's a great thing to do. It feels fantastic.
Yeah, I love it. Like I said, I'm glad I spent time coaching college football, but right now I love coaching high school football. Awesome.
So coming in, and I've even talked to Coach Banster because he's going into his second year of being a head coach. Because we're trying to do the same thing of like you come in. I don't necessarily tell people like you're changing a culture, you're just bringing in your culture because everybody's got their own, whether it's good, bad, and different. So when you came in, like, okay, I'm going to put in my culture, like, how do you implement that? Like, where was the first starting point of getting kids out and trying to keep them and, doing this and that in your culture when you take over as a head coach?
I think so. Right now, I'm currently writing a lot of the stuff down, and it's. And I think you're right. I think instituting your culture is different than. So the last 2 years here have been really adverse for the kids. So with the coaching changes and COVID and da da da. So the first thing when you're coming in and everybody's got the blueprint of their culture, you have to see where the deficits are of where you're already at, and then like where do we lack? Like our kids, they just like accountability and discipline and stuff like that, and that's where you start. And then you look for the goods, like what are we doing well? Like what's already running well here? Like, what do we already have? Do we have support from the community? Do we have good kids? Like, that's huge. Do we have talented kids? Do we not have talented kids? And I think once you find to look at what's the goods from the community, the faculty, the students, the facilities, and you look at the bad, same list, then you can start strategically implementing like what's important to you and then trying to add your spin into a culture, because we've had football since 1915. There's already tradition here.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, that's just how life is. I mean, we're red and white. We want red and white helmets and red and white jerseys and stuff like that. It's traditional. That's how it is. And so you embrace that, but then you add your new twist. So I'm big on accountability and holding kids accountable, but holding kids accountable for the good and the bad. So that's a little bit of a different twist. So not being as negative when something bad happens, but trying to teach them how to face that adversity and keep moving on. And then we want timeliness and all that kind of stuff that could be easily like trickled in and trickled in and trickled in. And when you do a complete culture rehaul and you scrap everything and start building from the ground up, I don't think it takes hold as if you embrace the traditions that you have, address the areas where your philosophy really differs from other philosophies there, and then press forward and share your vision with the kids. What's the vision of the program? And everything that you do refer back to the vision. So it's got the goods and the bads. Your vision might not always fit your dynamics, so you might have to start changing a little bit. Address the little thing or address the bad as much as you can. Some things are out of control, but just take it and then share your vision. And we just give you a list of things. And the number one thing is you can't implement your vision if the kids don't trust you.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care about whatever comes out of your face if they don't trust you.
Right. Because they can smell that BS a mile away. If you're not consistent, they don't trust you. And I like what you said, because I was always thinking when you come in as a head coach or a new staff, you change everything. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, you're just kind of doing what you want to do. So you're implementing. But I like what you said, don't scrap it all, because you could come in and they have a good understanding of the weight room. You don't know what was there before you. So if they have a little understanding of the weight room, okay, I don't have to scrap everything. So we can just tweak it a little bit to what we want to do. Come in and maybe they already did competition. Like we're going to start doing competition Wednesdays all summer for the kids. That's fun. So maybe they already did that. And you go, you know what? I'll do that. That was good. That was good team building. Maybe they always took a team trip somewhere and, whatever, just little things. And not even to the X's and O's, because you're going to come and do your X's and O's anyway. But until you get the other stuff, till they get bought into the other stuff, that stuff's not going to work. It's not going to happen.
Yep.
At the high school level. I mean, any level, I guess, but high school for real, especially when you're new. Now, if an assistant coach gets promoted, maybe, but when you're brand new, they will smell that a mile away. They won't trust you. And how you treat them, how you come in, like you said, and it's got to be fun. Like you're going to hit the ground running, but if you have to find some fun, especially in the summer. So like pool days, barbecue, competitions, earning points for those competitions. We did points for competition. You got into the season. Thursdays were team dinner. If you lost, you cleaned it up. The mom shouldn't have to touch it again. Like that type of stuff. So it was motivational of like set up huddle groups. Your captains are in charge. If a guy's missing, they're calling them. Like, why aren't you here? We're going to lose points if you're not here. And accountability and holding them to that high standard. Like that's all great stuff that you're talking about. And just those little things people don't think about before you even get into X's and O's. You can come in and run the air raid or something all you want. But if they're not buying in, you ain't going to do it well. It's not going to work.
Wins are a byproduct of the process and the culture. Like if you get the process right and you have a strong culture and you have a process and a plan on how you practice and a plan on how you lift, the wins will come. Winning is a byproduct of everything else. Like if where year one are saying is we ride as one. So what we're trying to do is unify.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, we want to win games and wins will come, but we want to unify the program. And by that means is everybody is starting to learn each other and trust each other and be one team and bring the town back involved, because Caruthersville, our rivals, literally, like you could skip a rock to our rival town, and we want to be one team, and that's the goal for year one. And as we've over the last 7 months worked on that, we've seen some major strides in it, but it comes down to my philosophy on how to gain trust is a whole long thing here, but it's being available and being seen, and the kids will see that and they know that you care about them for more than just what they can produce on the football field.
Right.
And once they trust you, they'll
run through that wall for you right behind you, or me. They'll knock all these down for you. Go knock Coach Steve's stupid podcast background down, and they'll go and they'll smack it all down.
But they have to know that you'll run for a wall for them.
Right. Do you think coaching in college kind of helped you with that aspect of it? Because you're not necessarily recruiting anymore, but you understand how to talk to these guys and know that you're not going to BS them from recruiting days of like, because to recruit, you can't BS with them either, or they're not going to come play for you. Do you think that kind of helped you into the high school a little bit, learning that type of communication?
Yeah, because all we do is communicate with kids. And look, we still have to recruit the high school level.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean like going out and like poaching kids, but I mean walking through the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
Like we still have to recruit every day. And you have to retain every day, which is a huge part of college coaching that nobody knows about, is retaining your kids. And that's all you do as a college coach, especially a position coach. You coach your position, but you recruit and retain, recruit, retain, and that's what you do, especially at small schools where money matters, like numbers matter. And that's what we do at the high school level. We have to march the halls and beat the pavement and build these trusts with elevator pitches with kids and get them out and figure out what's going to make their experience good. And shoot, we do it. Everybody does it every day without even knowing.
Yeah. And then like we were talking about us, we got kids out. Now we got to figure out how to keep them. That's going to be our biggest challenges. Now that we've got them, how do we keep them? Because we had a little disconnect between a varsity and a JV. Like the JV thought they were their own by themselves. I'm like, no, we're all one. Like we all practice together. Varsity, sophomores, we're all practicing together. Like we're a school of 2,000 kids, but we're struggling to get kids out. COVID killed it. COVID, for us, slowed it down. Now we're trying to get back. Like, I don't care who knows. I think we have like 30 freshmen signed up, which is fantastic. Like that's huge for us. To some, that's not a lot, but for us, we're like, okay, now how do we keep them? And so that's going to be our biggest challenge. And we've had to tweak the offense because, as stupid as it sounds, kids want the ball. Like on offense, I'm going to speak offensive terms. They want the football in their hands. So how do we do that without necessarily throwing it or necessarily like hand off in the backfield? Because they don't want to do that. We've had to tweak all that. Secret, we might have to do some option stuff. Like we may have to go back. And so as coaches, even though we want to do this, we have to sit there and tweak this and say, how do we keep them with the fun? But then when you get to X's and O's, like how do we keep them winning, obviously, but then how do we put them in a spot to be successful? How do they feel like they're not getting their ass kicked? How do they feel like, you're doing this and that freshman, make sure they're all playing. And so it's a lot to go into because you're redoing it. Our head coach, even though he was hired during COVID, we didn't have a true off season. We didn't have a true way of doing this. Even last summer still wasn't a true last summer. Like, so this is our real first off season of building this, even though it's going into his third year. And so we're trying to put in this culture and build this up and, doing all that. I'm sure you're going through the same thing of, okay, you got to get the numbers up from what you did last year. Now how you keep them. That's going to be the biggest struggle.
Yes.
And winning solves it, but
yeah, I mean, winning's the end all be all. Like, look at how many people complain about these huge college programs and they're like, oh, this coach is this coach is that. But we win a lot, so I'll handle it. Winning is the lipstick on the pig for a lot of things, but you gotta get there.
Or new helmets, believe it or not. You get new helmet decals or something, new uniforms, new this. You might get 10 kids that show up like, oh, that looks cool. I know a buddy, they just got turf and they had like 6 kids come out like, oh, that looks cool. And they come out and play. Like it's
my philosophy is you have to make kids be envious of the kids on your team.
Mm-hmm.
As if, look, Joey, whatever, is wearing the team lifting uniform and he's got game night, which is our program where he's going to go eat pizza and play video games in the field house for a couple hours with the team. And this kid's got this and this kid's got this. And he's like, well, why does football get all of that? It's like, you know what? Because those kids come there and they bust their tail. I guess how does all get out there? I have to go pick up block later. I'm waiting until the sun goes down. Like,
well, like for us, last Wednesday, Thursday, we had a cool opportunity that the Chicago Bears relations guy, they put on a 7-on-7 lineman challenge on a Wednesday, Thursday, and we got to go. And it was new, like for these type of schools. There were 16 of us, I think, there. And so it's cool now where we could say, we're getting invited back next year. Like I said, wherever it's at, whether we host it or this school hosts it, he said, you're going to come back. And that's cool. But guess what? They got the Bears gear. They got like it was true. Like this is the sideline gear. And they came and gave it to the kids and it was fantastic. But we can go back to those freshmen and stuff and say, hey, you work hard. You earned the opportunity. Next year, you're going to go play and maybe see some Bears guys that work for the organization and do this. And then, like you said, when you walk in the school with that Bears gear on, and then you see Justin Fields who are wearing it, where'd you get that? Well, I earned this because I worked really hard in the summer. I showed up, and coach said, do you have the opportunity to go play in this? As stupid as it might sound, maybe that's a way to get kids there. Joint practices with other schools so you can go one-on-one versus them, like all that type of stuff. You earn that right. And like you said, people don't see the hard work. They just see the gear. Like, why? I have it too. I don't lie to you. They gave all line coaches gear, which was awesome. They're like, all line coaches, come here. You get this on the field gear. So guess what? I'm going to walk around in it. But those kids work their ass off for it. And if that's what keeps them there, and it keeps them like, well, next summer I'm going to show up to the weight room, because we didn't take kids if you didn't show up. You didn't just come to camp and say, we're going to take you. You had to show up on the off season, or you were playing a different sport. Just a lot goes into it, a lot of thought and preparation go into that. And like you said, you're dealing with more administrative stuff now as a head coach than in college. I guess in college you did too, I guess. There was administrative stuff.
Yeah, like paperwork and the administrative stuff, the stuff that is the hardest thing to learn. like eligibility,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep.
Ordering and POs and budgets, booster club and donors, fundraising, all that fun stuff.
You still have to do that in high school.
No, that's all high school stuff. College stuff, I mean, we didn't do too much. I mean, we did some fundraisers, like we had a gear store.
Well, that's the other thing. Kids play for gear. I learned that very quickly when I was younger. Like that's why I want to come up with like wine shirts and they earn them, or the weightlifting shirts, 1,000 pound club.
We have O-line shirts, and our O-line coach won't give it to them unless they get a pancake.
There you go. There you go.
We have like 2 O-linemen right now that have the shirt. I mean, I have my shirt because,
Well, you're the boss.
Yeah, but I also had a lot more pancakes than
I would be the coach that came in and said, "Are you talking about eating pancakes, or we actually?" And I would be like, I'll eat the pancakes if you give me the shirt."
Yeah,
that would be me.
He said, "Coach, I got you." I'm like, "Oh, sweet." But yeah, I mean, the t-shirts help. Like the kids are blowing up my phone because they want socks now. I was like, "Yeah, if you earn them."
It costs money. If you earn them, you'll get them.
Yeah, like show it. If you have perfect attendance for the rest of the month, I'll buy them. If you don't, then you can get your own socks.
Yeah. At a school,
that's the thing. Like,
oh, go ahead.
I was like, that's the thing. The kids were like, well, they don't see the fundraising side. They don't see that you want to keep a pool of money in your fundraising account just in case and stuff like that. So they don't see that aspect, which no kid should see that aspect. But I'm not going to completely clothe them unless they do something to earn it. Like, I'm not going to reward you for what you should do.
Right. Like you should already be at the weight room. Like we get Gatorade, the protein Gatorades in the bars. And if you paid for camp and you show up to the weight room, you get them. Now, if a kid just shows up that first day and they haven't paid for camp, or that's their first day, we go, you need to be here so many times. And that was a stupid way, but especially freshmen, they're like, "Oh, I want the protein bar." So they start showing up and they're lifting and they're getting that protein bar afterwards. And because we tell them that ain't cheap. Getting that Gatorade stuff is not cheap.
Oh, so nothing's cheap, especially right now. Nothing's cheap.
No, and getting the helmets back isn't cheap anymore, and it takes forever. And we try to tell them that, like, all the stuff you want, yeah, we could figure it out. The head coach does. I don't. He's in charge. But we're like, it's not cheap. So what, you got to meet us halfway. And then another school I was at, you had to have a certain, so their logo was like the Green Bay Packers G, but they're not that. It was just a G. So his helmet decal was the 2 G's and a black line down the middle. They had red helmets, and that's what they did. You had to earn those stickers. So you had a percentage. So like if you were there the full time, or like 90%, you got all of it. If you were there like 70% of the time, you got only half, and this and that. And he goes, "I want people to know when you run out there and you have no decal and people say, 'Why didn't you have a decal?' Well, he wasn't here. Never showed up. So when mom and dad complained about it, well, get him here." Like,
yeah. When your kid wants to sleep till noon.
Yeah.
Like you can't come like, and that's everywhere. It's not just, I mean, and I get it. Like nobody wants someone to get left out, but there's also stipulations on things when it comes to athletics and football specifically. So the kids actually came up with a good idea. Like if you want team socks, because my rule is white socks.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? And we will pick one game in October where you can wear pink socks. Like we're not doing this all October. You guys are wearing pink all month. Like we're not doing that.
Right.
So if you want to really support breast cancer awareness, donate money.
Right.
But I know kids, it's important to kids, so we're going to pick a day or a game, and we'll give them stipulations on what they can wear that's pink, and because sometimes kids take it way too far.
Oh, God, yes.
So, but we have to wear white socks, and that's it. And they just came up with their own incentive program by blowing my phone up. Is group texters, good and bad. if you show up for a certain portion of July, I'll get team socks for the guys to show up
Right.
on every day. And
So-
here's the other thing. And here we can't make our summer practices mandatory.
Right.
We can't make our summer lifts mandatory. But you can incentivize being there. And that's what's become very difficult is for schools. Like we were very fortunate in June. We had a really good attendance. But we want to go to the lake on Friday and we're going to miss Friday. I was like, that's your choice, but you're going to fall behind and miss reps. And then when the 7-on-7 Tuesday comes around, you're the last guy in.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Is that because you're telling me you don't want to spend 2 hours in town at football and then go to the lake? Or go to the lake in the morning and then come back for practice? I was like, look, we're very fortunate in Missouri. But if these guys are here practicing every day, they're going to get 7-on-7 reps before you do if you decide to go hang out the lake. You know,
Right.
you don't think I want to go hang out the lake? Like, I want to go fishing right now. Like, I want to do this stuff.
Right.
But we all have to make sacrifices for the greater good.
Right.
So that those kids, they didn't play until the end of the 7-on-7. I got them in naturally, but and that's how we're keeping our numbers is up. Is we have 7-on-7s a 7-on-7 with another school every week.
Okay.
And then we have football days the last 2 Fridays of the month. So we'll have 7-on-7s, and then we'll have like 7-on-7 line competitions once a week. So we host 2, we'll go away for 2, and then we have 2 almost football days, which is like controlled football type stuff. And then the rest of the time is just practice. But for instance, I'm going to take the kids to the adventure park with paintball and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's costing the program money.
Right.
Like, that's real money that doesn't just happen to show up.
They don't just let you in for free.
Yeah. If you don't do what you're supposed to do, you're not going.
No.
Like, you're just not. Because how am I going to incentivize bad behavior or skips or this and that? Like, when we hand out equipment, yes, we got a bunch of new equipment this year, but I'm going to start with the guys that do everything right and give them stuff. And as I go down, if you have ISS and write-ups and stuff like that, you're probably going to be out of getting the new shoulder pads and the new flexes and all that kind of stuff. But that's your fault. Like, I don't care about how good you are. It's your behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have to understand that football is going to end. And then you can either be someone that goes on to something successful or the guy that just brags about how great he was in high school and doing whatever, which is everybody, like, that's great if that's what you want to do. But we're going to push these kids and push these kids and push these kids and incentivize them doing the right thing. So when they see the right thing and they see that good comes from it as they get older, when you do the right thing as an adult, there might not be like socks or a t-shirt or snow cones or whatever, but it's going to be a promotion. It's going to be the job that you want. It's going to be the girl that you want to marry finally starts to like you because you're not acting like a jerk. And it's all that kind of stuff that adds up and adds up and adds up. And I always dislike the coaches are like, why are you incentivizing something they need to do? I was like, because if you do the right thing as an adult, you get rewarded for it too.
Right. Right.
We can teach that to these kids now.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they become adults, which none of them are adults, despite what they might say, once they become adults, then they see how hard work pays off. And then as they start getting in the weight room, this is a culture flip we're talking about, as they start getting in the weight room and as they start showing up to everything, as they do that, then the wins start ticking up.
Mm-hmm.
Then I don't mind buying socks and whatever, because even if we have more kids showing up and more kids showing up and more kids showing up, and I have to buy 100 pairs of socks, deal. Because that's the culture thing worked. It's going to cost more money. That's fine. We'll do a car wash. Like, that's not that big of a deal. But that kind of stuff, I think, is huge. And where we're so close-minded as some of us adults are, why do you need to incentivize this? Why this? Why that? Like, they should just show up. My kids just show up and they don't need stickers. And congratulations. But once you stop winning, the kids are going to stop showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to have to find a way to actually teach them lessons about, and yes, winning is the lesson. And I don't want to devalue the coaches that don't give incentives. Like, that's your prerogative, whatever. But there is a life lesson attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it does help programs that are rebuilding get to where they need to be.
Right. Because
that philosophy,
yeah,
doesn't mean it's wrong. Just like I don't think the kids should just show up and want to do it. Philosophy is wrong. It's just a different thing altogether.
well, you also have to change. Like when we all were younger, maybe that's how it was. Like you just show up, wins are the thing, but we have to adapt. So not every kid can just show up and be motivated. Some are, guaranteed. Everybody has some kids out there that just show up. They're there to play. They love it. They're going to do it no matter what. But that's a small percentage. If the majority needs motivation, that's what you're going to do. Classroom teaching, even too. Like if you don't see that kids need motivation a different way than what way back when, you're going to be left behind. And people have to see that. So, the coach, it's like, well, they're just going to show up and work. Okay. Then when you lose 10 kids a summer, you're going to try to figure out why. You got to change something.
Yeah, and you have to be willing to almost sacrifice, because as much as I would love to go, like when I was in high school, we just showed up to lift it.
Mm-hmm.
No t-shirts really. Like they gave us lineman of the week t-shirts sometimes, or player of the week t-shirts sometimes. And I didn't even think we did helmet stickers in high school. Maybe, yeah, JV we did varsity. I'm not sure. I don't even remember. But I do know that we had a win-loss board, and they were the same way there. You can't make it mandatory. You can incentivize going, but you can't make it mandatory. Like I can't hold it, and I won't hold it against the kid if he has to work or go on vacation or just misses. Like you're just going to fall behind, and we'll catch you up in August. But it's one of those fine line things. But we had a win-loss board. You're either a winner or the loser, and you either got a W or an L next to your name. It was public, like it was on the whiteboard. And every day he would go, all right, who's here? W, L. And the W's were in black and the L's were in red.
Mm-hmm.
It was public knowledge. If you missed, you lost the day.
Yep. We're kind of the same way in the summer. Like it's camp. So technically you don't have to be there, but technically you do. Like you said.
One of the coaches in the area, I think might have been Malvin. He goes, summer practices be mandatory, but neither is winning.
That's true.
And that's the thing. And there are states that don't have what we have, and they can still go and win state championship, But guess what? Nobody in that state has it. So if we have it and everybody else we're playing is using it, and there's a school in our area that they do a really good job in the weight room, and I follow their football page and So there'll be days when our kids are a little sluggish, and I was like, oh, we're losing to this team today. What do you mean? I was like, well, they've already lifted, and those guys worked harder than you are. So as of right now, we're losing to that team right now. And it kind of changes that mindset in there of, oh, shoot, we're getting outworked right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We tried posting scores from last year if we lost. Like you're posting that up. We even posted the excuse board of like, this is all the excuses we hear. So if you did it, you have to go like write on it. Like this is the excuse you used.
Mm-hmm.
And people see that and they're like, I don't want to use that. Like just different ways, we put our rival school up and we lost to them by like 40 points last year. So that's posted all over. So it's like you said, very similar. If they're tired and blah, blah, we're like, well, this high school, which is in our district, 2 high school district, who is your rival, is lifting harder than you right now. Yep. They're doing this harder than you right now. They're at a 7-on-7 beating people right now, and you're not because you didn't go.
Yep. And that kind of thought process with us has really helped. And our kids have made tremendous strides since, from what I heard about what was happening last year to this year. I mean, our guys, like we haven't lost a 7-on-7 yet, and and I'm trying to get us in a situation where we're going to face some adversity.
Mhm.
But these kids have really taken to that kind of a thing, and I give them a lot of credit. And for us, I mean, it's a lot of, they saw that we came in. Each kid has their own lifting clothes that they have to wear to lift in practice, and we wash them and we give them a laundry loop, and they all look the same. And then all of a sudden, more kids started coming to lifting. Like you said, it was kind of an almost incentive, but part of it is we want to be unified. And then we move on to doing like game night, which is our every other week. We put a bunch of PlayStations and order pizza or barbecue or whatever, and the kids stay in the field house for a couple hours and play video games and da da da. And there's an incentive to show up to every game night. And all that stuff to kind of unify the program and to get them trending in the right direction. So now they're starting to see results because they're getting stronger, they're looking more physically fit, and then that motivates them to start coming back to the weight room. And our full coaching staff finally will be here starting next week. So one of our coaches was doing equipment for the Birmingham USFL team that just won the championship. So he's joining us, and he'll be the last part of our coaching staff. We'll finally have a full coaching staff. And so for us, those little incentive things, as much as that old school, they should just show up, it doesn't work with some kids. We've taken that incentive aspect and really pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. And now we've got really good numbers everywhere.
Yeah, you were talking to me about how you got your numbers up, and I'm like, oh man, that's why I was excited to talk to you, because I was like, what are they doing? Because we're trying to do the same somewhere, and I'm stealing some of this. I'm gonna walk back in tomorrow and be like, we gotta do this, we gotta do this. And the easiest way is just to turn the bill into the administration. Like, this is the football bill. There you go, whatever.
Yeah. Well, game night's an expensive venture, by the way. So we're very fortunate. The Ministerial Alliance really helped us with that, and outside people have too. But I think the biggest thing, how we got our numbers up, and because we're historically a very strong football program, only had it's a really bad crisis when there's 2 down years in a row. But I think a lot of it was we have coaches there wasn't a ton of coaches in the building. But I think the big thing was, personally, as a PE teacher, I saw most of the boys every day, and it was just building relationships with them and them getting to know you. And then you're like, you should play. He's like, I don't know. All right, come on. Like, what's the worst that can happen? And just beating the bricks and getting out there and really, again, recruiting the kids to come out. And I think a lot of positive interaction is huge. So when I talk to kids, even when they do something wrong, I'm trying to not be negative. And once they know that you're not going to be that hard nosed, like, I'm going to cuss you out if you do something wrong type guy, which everybody's got a little cuss in them sometimes. And then understand that the whole staff's on the same page, and you're hiring and keeping them apprised of what's going on with hiring your staff and giving them information that would be readily available to the public, but you're telling them because they're the team and it matters to them.
Right.
And making them feel like their opinion's valued in a lot of things, and asking them, what would you like when we start this program, or what would be a good incentive here, or what about this, or what about that, or what about this, and really letting them be involved in the resurrection of their own program is huge. Right. And where there's ideas that I came in with and stuff that I've taken from my assistant coaches and got other head coaches I've talked to, a lot, the big thing that these kids have a voice in their program. And it's not that it's overly powerful, but it's like, coach, what about this? All right, we'll look into it. And but you have to look into it. Like, coach, can we get socks? When we come back, I'll see what the socks are, see what kind I can afford. And then I'll say, if you show up to this many, if you have perfect attendance in the weight room, you'll get a pair of Tiger football socks. But I'm not just giving it to you because you want it.
Right.
Earn it. And taking little suggestions like that, like when we started game night, I asked them what kind of games they wanted. Uno, UFC, 2K, Madden. So what games did we get asked to get donated? The games that they wanted. What do you guys? We want pizza or we want to try this, or coach, one night will you cook? I was like, I guess. But stuff like that, and make them understand that they have to earn what they get, but they're also going to have a voice in the programs they're contributing to is huge. And understanding that when you get on a kid and have to discipline them, there's a lesson attached, not just a tantrum. And so many times when coaches yell at a kid and they'll just be done. Do you understand? Once you both cool off, do you understand why I got on you? Do you understand why I was upset?
Mhm.
What can we do different to make sure that doesn't happen again? And that's a forgotten part of discipline, is actually having a conversation with a kid instead of just
Right.
ripping his head off and calling it a day. And all of those things combined, knowing that they can come to football, they're going to get pushed, but they're not going to get attacked.
Right.
Not that they were attacked before, but you know what I mean.
Right.
They're going to get coached and brought along instead of just thrown to the wolves and saying, look, I'm not going to pair this kid against my best wide receiver because my best wide receiver is just going to bully him. And that kid might develop 2 years down the road. So he's going to be the scout team against the twos.
Mhm.
And being strategic in that kind of stuff and making the culture fun. Like, you should have fun and play dumb music and thing. Let them screw around in the locker room as long as it's safe. We have ties for game day that they got to pick out. So I ordered a team set of ties and they got to pick out the tie.
Yeah, I was that coach for a while. I don't know if I said that last time we talked before. I was like the bad cop. So I was the guy, as soon as they knew I got mad, it was like butt chewing. But guess what? I learned from that for me personally. So now it just happened this other camp day. We're, like I told you, we're putting a new run play, and I'm telling them we're taking this angle and we're running. Well, this freshman who is taller than me, and I'm 6'5", he's as tall as I am, if not taller as a freshman, wasn't running. And I freaked out. I'm like, you watch your other teammates run. Why aren't you running? And I freaked out. But then I was able to pull him aside and say, like, hey, I got on you because you're capable of doing this and you're not doing it. So this is why I got frustrated. And we had a conversation, and he's a freshman and I'm the varsity coach. So building that for the summer until I don't see the freshman again, now he'll know, hey, when I get to Coach Steve, he's going to try to get the best out of me. And I know that he, at the end of the day, is going to come up, have a conversation. Or when football's over and I'm going to basketball and I see them leaving the hallway, I have a completely different conversation. Completely. Hey, what are you doing today? You're going to go to the pool? What's for dinner? Where are your parents going? What are you doing? And I'll have a completely different conversation. So they know the difference of, like, we're on the field, this is who he is. Off the field, this is who he is.
Yeah, and that's huge. And knowing them and asking about their parents. And we live in my town is, the little poster thing says 6,000 something. So everybody knows everybody and you hear everything and da. But having a real conversation with, how's everything going? Like, what's going on with you and girl A? And how's your grandma doing with this? And how's your mom doing with that? Is there anything that we can do for you? Is there anything that your teammates can help you with? Like, clean up your grandma's lawn, or it's, why are you and my joke is like, are you in your feelings? and for some reason most of the kids chuckle like, no, I'm just in a bad mood. I was like, why are you in a bad mood? Oh, I don't want to talk about it. I was like, then don't show it on your face if you don't want to talk about it.
Right.
And then they end up talking about it because they want you to ask, but you have to ask. You just have to ask in a way that they're like, this guy. I went up and I was like, oh, do you need a hug? That's not me. But if I'm like, hey, buddy, like, are you in your feelings? Why are you in your feelings today? Did you get dumped? And they're like, no, I don't get dumped, coach. I'm like, okay, so what's wrong? And I don't know, learning how to approach your kids. Because there's kids on this team I can't like yell at. There's some kids that need to get yelled at, but there's kids you can't yell at.
Right.
So don't yell at them. You bring them, and then you get on them, and then you just send them away. Some kids need to get yelled at. Some kids need to be, their ego's like this high. And you need to just go, listen, you're not that good. You're not as good as you think you are.
Right.
You're either going to work and take a lap and come back to work, or take a lap and go to the locker room. We'll see you tomorrow.
And that's usually my job.
Yeah. Well, we have Coach Allensworth now for that part of the job. I like that job sometimes, but he's really good at it, so he can take it.
I had experience when I was the bad cop. So when it has to be done, I'm like, I'm that guy. I'll do that for you.
I don't mind yelling and doing all that kind of stuff. It's just I'd rather not be the oh crap, here comes Coach G.
Mm-hmm.
Even though some days it is like that, because sometimes they just are. I find new gray hairs when I brush my teeth in the morning because of some of the days. But again, I wouldn't trade a kid, but it's coaching. It's just how life is.
I was going to give you that warning here at the end. Like, you're going to start finding in your beard, there's white hairs. And then over here on the side, it's going to start coming in for you, coach, when you're doing all the high school stuff. It's going to come in.
I already found one in here. I have one like here. And I'm like,
I start naming them if a kid's giving me a hard, like if they do something, I go, hey, you see this white hair right here? You caused that. And I will tell them, like, you caused this to pop in. Or the worst part is, I'll ask some of them that are new. I'm like, how old do you think I am? The other day, I asked a kid that who I have not talked to. He goes, you've got to be late 30s and early 40s. And I was like, he was dead serious. I looked at him like, I'm 31 years old. He goes, no, you're not. And I was like, it's because of these gray hairs that you caused to make me look older.
yeah, they like, coach, you're like 40. I'm like, I'm 29. So you just earned yourself extra conditioning today.
You're not getting those damn socks now.
Now you're not getting sucks. Now I'm gonna change the lifting time without telling you. But I don't know, just having fun like that. The kids love that stuff.
They do. They do.
They need that.
They do need that. They do need that. Well, coach, I've taken an hour of your time. I appreciate it. I was really excited to talk about culture stuff, and I got a lot out of it. So I appreciate you.
Well, good. I'm glad my rant helped somebody today.
It will help a lot of people. It's about finding the little nuggets. It's about finding something you've either have heard before, but it's said different where it clicks with your brain, or it's about maybe you've never heard it before. And you're like, oh, that's so easy. That's so simple. And, like I said, I'm that person. I could hear something and not register with me. And then another person says it differently. I'm like, there's the light bulb. It just goes off.
I think the big thing is for me as we're doing things this year, I'm writing everything we do down.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a running document. And then as we go into the season, you write things down like, all right, we had to change this for this team and this for this team. And you start creating like a log and da-da-da-da. But the culture log is important. So you take an inventory of your team. This is what I'm going to do. Take an inventory of the team. What do we struggle with? What do we do well culturally? What do we need to work on culturally? And look at the list and say, what didn't help?
Right.
What did help? What could be better? And take the stuff that you do as you change the culture and write it down and be like that and constantly evaluate yourself and listen to podcasts and talk to coaches and and see what you can do better. Because then, like, none of the stuff that I'm doing here done by somebody else. I took my ideas that I had, took the best way to get it done from a bunch of different people, tweaked it and made it mine or made it ours. And that's even taking stuff from my assistant coaches and other head coaches in the school and understanding what I can and can't do here. And just taking an inventory of yourself. Like, what do I need to do better?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know that I was overextended when I was coaching track and doing the weight room, and I didn't do enough football. So I had to catch up. And now I understand how to prioritize my time better when we're POing and all that stuff. But I think being self-aware and understanding that you're not going to be able to do the same thing every day forever is huge.
Right. That's a good point. It's not going to always be the same. Like you said, whatever you did this year, you might change it next year. And then the third year, well, maybe I have to go back and look at what I did the first year. That's a great point. That's, even though some do it the same, but then you tweak it. It's not going to be an overhaul. You just tweak it of what you were doing.
Like, hey, we need to make smaller lifting groups. We might need to make smaller lifting groups next year. Like, we have a 9,700 square foot weight room facility, but the way it's set up and we might have to, like, next year we're going to have more lifting times.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be able to be more efficient.
Right.
Next year we're going to make 2 times for the middle school kids and maybe lift the middle school kids with some of the younger varsity kids. And those things that even now we're reevaluating and taking notes on, and like how we need to optimize everything that we have and continue to grow and not go, okay, well, I'm the head coach now and I just implemented all my stuff and now we got to wait a couple years for it to work. That's just not how life works. You're always going to find a good and the bad and the ugly. And good, keep, bad, work on, ugly, ditch.
Right.
Good, bad, and
Right.
ugly.
Young people don't know what that movie is, so it's fine. Good
I
and
make
bad.
movie references all the time that they don't get. So I guess that means you're old.
Movie references and music. They don't know.
Yeah. But they're like, oh, play Young Hoodie, whatever that idiot's name is. And I'm like, no.
I'll always ask them, who's the,
If you have straight A's, I'll give you the aux. How about that?
yeah, if you got straight
That actually might work. That's actually a good idea.
you need to write that down right here when we're done. You need to write that down. Straight A's, you show up every day, you get the music.
Yeah. I got my Google thing on the drive so I can access it anywhere. But oh yeah, if you get a certain amount of GPA points, you can control the music in the weight room for a week, which is scary.
That is scary. I don't know. They play their music. I don't know what it is. I don't know any of it.
We're gonna be listening to like Little Dirk and Little Idiot and all this other terrible rap music.
Even in class, they'll say, "Do you know who this is?" I'm like, "Nope, don't even know what you're talking about."
Do you know who? I was like, how come it's just Lil something? I was like, are they not creative anymore?
Because back in the day, it was just Lil Wayne. Like that was.
And then there's like 8,000 Lils after that, and then there's Young Boy, and then now there's. And there was some new rap that actually is very catchy.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, like, give me the like real rap, like what's actually telling a story, and
Yes.
like NWA and Biggie and Tupac and
Give that or like the old school rock, and they don't know what that is. I swear they didn't know who's saying like "Eye of the Tiger," and I had to walk away. I'm like, I don't know. Just go away from me. I was like, get away from me.
we're the Tigers, and we play Eye of the Tiger, and they didn't even know it.
Now you're definitely not getting those damn socks. There's no Tiger socks for you. They're not getting that.
I'm like, oh. So that's another thing. Like, we try to culture our kids musically. Coach, who's the? Well, there's one kid that knows all the old music, but that's because his dad listens to it. So I don't know. Music's a whole different thing. I'm not even gonna get on that. It drives me nuts. If I can't understand what they're saying, it doesn't do it for me. But
Yes.
whatever.
We play in the stadium if we're doing camp there, like low, because that's a perk, like incentive. Like we'll play music a little bit, but if you screw up, we're not going to play it. So we'll play our stuff, and then they hate it, and we're like, but we don't know your stuff. We don't understand it. We don't trust you because you're going to give us some song that's going to be in the speaker. And
Cussing up a storm, we're going to get board members all mad at us.
When the assistant principal walks out to check on what's going on with football, and he hears that, I'm like, oh, well, there we go. Like, we're in trouble. Oh, come on, coach, you got to play this or play this or play this. Get on Spotify and play this. We're like, you don't know how to spell what you just said. I don't even know what that means.
Coach, let me get the aux. Absolutely not.
Oh, they do. Like, let me get my phone and get the aux. Like, no, hell no.
Listen, you can't. And I bought weight room shorts without pockets for a reason. Because there's no cell phones allowed in the weight room. They're like, well, I got my phone. I was like, oh, do you? Oh, in my locker, right? In my locker. I'm like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
Funny. I can't see it tucked into your shirt, but funny.
Yeah, well, I don't have it on me. What's that square thing, on your shirt or rolled up in the sleeve? Like, what's the square?
They think they're slick.
They do. They think they're slick, or like they don't look at you one way because they have the AirPod in, and you're like, I'm gonna see it eventually.
I know it's in. Like, I don't even care about the AirPods anymore. As long as you're lifting, like at this point, I know it sounds bad, but if you're gonna listen to music, if that's what helps you lift, listen to music. You're just not playing it over the speaker.
Yeah, I didn't mind it during the weight room. It was freshman basketball. We show up to basketball. They have it in while we're doing camp. I'm like, what are you doing?
Not.
Or they're in hats. They're in hats trying to play back. Like, what are you doing?
It's cool, coach.
Yeah, they play on the blacktop like that. And I told them, I'm like, I grew up. I was a kid. We play like that, but take it off. This is like we're in high school now.
Coach Steve, you're not even cool.
Well, they'll tell me that. I'm like, oh, that's fine. It's fine. I don't have to be cool. It's not my job. I tell them all the time, it's not my job, and nor do I care about what goes on.
Yes.
Well, all right, coach. I've taken a lot of your time. I feel bad, but a lot of information there. I appreciate you. It's your first year there. I hope you guys win every game. I hope you don't play East St. Louis. That's the only team I know by Missouri. I don't know anybody else down there. Don't play East St. Louis. You don't want to play them. Don't touch them.
We're like 3 hours from them.
Yeah, you're not going to play them. Played them at a school I was at in the playoffs. I'm 6'5". Their safety walked by me, looked eye to eye to each other, and I was like, cool.
Yeah, it's different out there.
Their nose guard looked like Dwayne Johnson, just 5'5". Mm-hmm. Paid on my sophomore guard and threw him 5 yards.
Yeah. I'll advise our AD because he's got to do all that naturally.
Yeah, be like, no East St. Louis. That's the only school I know. That's why I bring that up. I don't know anybody else.
We're restructuring our things, I guess, maybe. I don't know. Whatever. Just tell me who we're playing. We'll be ready.
Right. Well, thank you, Coach, for being on here. Hope you win every game. Took some things here. We'll be talking again because I'm sure I'll need to learn more culture stuff and building a staff. I like learning all that, even though I don't want to be a head coach right now. I will. It's going away a little bit every year. But I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
No problem at all.
What's your Twitter so I can put it on here? I forgot.
@_ or @coach_ Guglielmo. So GUGLIELMO. You want me to text it to you?
Well, I just say it so they have it, and then I'll put it on there.
Oh.
I'll find it.
@coach_ Guglielmo.
Guys, go follow him. Coach, thank you so much. Guys, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys next time.